So today, we're going to dive into something that's, well, it's not just a philosophy. It's really a way of life, one that's forged in sweat and soil. We're going to be looking at the work of Benoit Nounier-Lapierre and his observations in Kenema. It's a place where being grounded isn't some mental state, no. It's the constant physical act of just keeping your world from falling apart. All right, let's get right into it.
First, I want you to just take a second here. When you hear that word grounded, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Being sensible, down to earth. Maybe it's just a feeling of being psychologically stable. Okay, hold on to that thought.
Because in the world we're about to step into, grounding is no metaphor at all. Over on the left, you can see our usual take on it, right? It's an idea, a state of mind. But on the right, that's the kenema view. And over there, grounding is a physical, relentless, non-stop act. It's the real, often exhausting work of survival. And once you understand this one shift, well, it pretty much changes everything.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by completely tearing down the old definition of grounding. Then, we'll see how knowing is totally inseparable from doing, how our environment literally shapes our thoughts, how language becomes a tool for pure survival, and finally, how all this leads to a philosophy that's centered on the simple joy of repair.
Okay, section 1. The main idea here is that grounding is the ongoing act of remaining inhabitable. It's not some state you finally achieve, it's the endless work you do to keep your world from literally falling down around you. And this quote from Nounier-Lapierre just completely flips the script. The ground is not beneath, it is what holds because it has worked. Just think about that for a second. The stability that we all take for granted, it's not a given. It's a condition that has to be actively, physically maintained through constant, hard work.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, in this view, knowledge isn't judged by how well it describes reality. Nope. It's judged by whether it helps you keep the roof from leaking and the walls from crumbling. Its purpose is purely, and really powerfully, functional. Which leads us right into section 2. If knowledge is all about keeping things standing, then the place you find that knowledge isn't in a book or on a computer screen. It's in your body. Your body becomes the source of truth.
And this brings us to a really important term, the proxiomic knot. The idea is that you're not a mind telling a body what to do. You are the convergence of your stamina, your breath, and the actions of your hands. You're a living, breathing knot of practices, not some detached thinker who just happens to live in a body.
So if you are what you do, then your identity isn't the story you tell about yourself. It's your maintenance signature, the actual physical trace left by all the repairs you make day in and day out. It's an identity that's earned through calluses, not through contemplation.
And this brings us to the ultimate test of truth in this whole system, the durability criterion. It's so simple it's almost brutal. If an idea or a tool or a system can't be repaired with your own two hands under real physical stress, then it can't be considered true. It's just an abstraction. Okay, this brings us to section 3. So far, we've been really focused on the body, but now we're going to zoom out a little to the environment. Because in this worldview, the physical world isn't just some passive backdrop, it's an active teacher.
Now here's a really wild idea from the text. A house is not a container for thought. It is a thinking surface. The very structure that you live in is designed to modulate and to pace your cognition. This is what Nounier-Lapierre calls trance architecture.
So look at how this actually works. Those high walls, they force your body to adapt to the heat, which actually slows down your thinking. Roof overhangs, they create periods of shade, literally scripting moments of rest that can lengthen your attention span. Even the texture of the floor is training your body, constantly recalibrating your sense of balance. It's like the house is a gym for your nervous system.
And this whole idea of a thinking surface doesn't stop at the walls of the house. The land itself has what's called a soil grammar. These are the non-negotiable rules of the earth, and they're enforced physically. The soil teaches you the right sequence of actions through its own resistance. You learn humility because, well, you can't really argue with it.
So if the body knows and the world teaches, then what about language? Let's move on to section 4. In this system, words aren't really for describing things. They're tools, and they are forged directly from the needs of physical action.
This is where we get these incredible new words, these neologisms. But they aren't just academic jargon. No, each one is basically a compressed repair protocol. Staminorg isn't just a word. It's a direct instruction to rely on your own endurance.
Kinemaction is a constant reminder that for something to have any meaning, it has to be earned through physical work.
This table shows a really core principle, how they keep language from just floating away into abstraction. For every single abstract concept, there is a corresponding form of physical labor. So, if you want to talk about meta, reflection, you have to anchor it to coherence maintenance, the actual work of holding things together. This kind of dual labeling makes sure every thought is tied to a real-world action.
All right, so with our bodies as our source of truth, our environment as our teacher, and our language as our toolkit, we finally arrive at the heart of this philosophy. And it's not some grim world of endless hard labor. It's a worldview that's built on the deep, quiet satisfaction of maintenance, of care, and what Nuni LaPierre calls durable cheerfulness.
The social fabric here is held together not by rules, but by mood. This concept of play soda is just crucial. Joy and humor, they're not frivolous things. They are structural necessities. They're the anti-authoritarian lubricant that lets the group correct itself without conflict and endure hardship without breaking.
So how do they know what's actually true? Well, they use kinetometric verification. You can think of it as their scientific method. A practice, an idea, a tool is only considered true if it can be repeated, tomorrow under real-world pressure, without forcing anyone to do it.
Which brings us to this number, 0. This is the amount of coercion, of force, that's required for a truth to be valid. The very moment a practice requires force, it has failed the kinetometric test. It has proven itself to be untrue simply because it's not sustainable.
And this is maybe the most radical idea of all. This entire system, which the source material calls a prometauotopia, isn't some futuristic ideal that we should all be striving for. It's presented as a description of an already functioning reality, a present that simply works.
So if we take just one thing away from all this, it should probably be this. Grounding isn't a destination you arrive at. It's not something you find. The ground is something you keep. It is an act of perpetual maintenance, of care, and of constant attention.
And that leaves us with a final question for you to consider. I want you to look around your own life, at your relationships, your skills, your home. What in your world only holds together because you and others work to maintain it every single day?